In typical fire seasons, you would have one region having a challenge at a given time. It would be the east, it would be the north, it would be the west. This year, it's all the regions at the same time.
Peguis First Nation declared the state of emergency on Sunday afternoon after high winds and extreme heat and dry conditions only added fuel to the fire. Hundreds of people have been evacuated. An emergency command center has been set up at the Hilton Winnipeg Airport suites to facilitate coordination between local, provincial, and federal agencies. Ground crews and aerial support are actively combating the fires. Residents in high-risk areas are advised to evacuate immediately. In a statement, IRTC Chairman Chief Cornell McLean says the situation is critical and requires immediate action and support. Pimicikamak Cree Nation in Manitoba evacuated the Big Eddy and Carrot River areas over the weekend. They are home now but are on high alert and are advised to seek shelter at the Veterans Hall if necessary. The Bracken Dam area remains evacuated. Dozens of people in James Smith Cree Nation in Saskatchewan were evacuated to Melfort on Saturday. 4 homes were lost to fires there. Fire crews say high winds fanned the flames, but they were unable to save several other properties. There were some scary moments for residents of a house on the Peguis First Nation when it became surrounded by a huge bushfire. And fire crews were also fighting fires in Frog Lake First Nation in Alberta, about 200 kilometers northeast of Edmonton. Some Peguis First Nation residents are now being allowed to return home on Wednesday after wildfires forced hundreds to evacuate. However, evacuees who were in the direct path of the fires can't come home just yet, as those homes still need to be assessed for smoke damage. There were a total of 350 evacuees previously staying in Selkirk in Winnipeg while fire crews fought the fires. Only 1 home was lost, along with several garages and sheds. The Interlake Reserves Tribal Council says an ATV started the fire. The chief says both a fire ban and ATV ban remain in effect in Peguis.
The risk for fires remains high, but the fire crews do have things under control and preventive steps are being taken for both home and community should a fire sweep through your area. So steps are being taken to shield or protect your property. The fire ban is still in effect, so no open fires. This will be in place until further notice. The ban on ATVs is still in effect.
It doesn't get more serious than loss of life.
2 people died while trapped in a wildfire near the town of Lac du Bonny in eastern Manitoba. RCMP recovered the bodies of a man and a woman Wednesday morning. In a news release, RCMP said they were told the couple needed help on Tuesday, but they couldn't reach them due to the extreme conditions. At a press conference in Winnipeg Thursday, Premier Wab Kinew said the news hits on an emotional level.
This loss of life changes what was an emergency into a tragedy.
Kinew said the Lac du Bonny wildfire was caused by human activity, but not much else can be shared as investigations are ongoing. At least 1,000 people have evacuated the area. It's currently more than 4,000 hectares in size, according to the Wildfire Service fire map. Lac du Bonny is one of 5 out-of-control wildfires currently plaguing the province, 4 of which are in southeast Manitoba. Kristen Hayward, Assistant Deputy Minister for the Manitoba Wildfire Service, said there have been 80 wildfires in the province this year, far above the 20-year average of 48. Other provinces and territories will be asked for help.
We currently have 40 firefighters from BC in the province. They've been deployed to the West 4 fire at the Paw and OCN. Yesterday, we also made a request through the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre for an additional 80 firefighters to come to Manitoba.
Premier Kinew says the upcoming long weekend presents more challenges. He shared how Manitobans can help.
The point has been made by people who are fighting the fires is it would be great if we don't have to get pulled away from the front lines to deal with a blaze in some other region. So again, it's a May long with no campfires, no bonfires. If we can do that, no fireworks, that would be helpful.
Fire officials stress private drones are not permitted near wildfires. Offenders could be fined up to $100,000 or face up to 2 years in jail. Manitoba is also refuge to 1,200 Ontarians fleeing wildfires in their regions. Sav Jonza, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
On Thursday evening, Pimicikamak Cree Nation Chief David Monias said the wildfire situation continues to evolve rapidly. More resources are going towards fighting the fire, and emergency response teams are working around the clock assessing the risks and safety measures. The chief says so far the wildfire is moving away from Pimicikamak, but the wind direction is expected to change over the weekend and blow heavy smoke into the community, which is why the evacuation of high-risk people is taking place on Saturday. Sprinkler systems to protect important infrastructure are also being installed. The chief is working closely with Indigenous Services Canada, the Red Cross, and the Emergency Measures Organization. Pimicikamak is located about 530 kilometers north of Winnipeg. In a statement posted to social media, Chief David Monias added, "A helicopter is being used to monitor the fire and support our firefighters on the ground. We ask that community members refrain from posting unofficial updates. Instead, please share only the official updates that we provide. Misinformation can cause unnecessary panic or false reassurance, and your cooperation is vital in keeping everyone safe and informed." The average number of wildfires in Manitoba is around 35. However, 59 wildfires have already been reported this year.
When it comes to wildfires, Manitoba currently has the highest fire activity in all of Canada, with flames burning 198,000 hectares of land so far. That's almost 3 times the area that historically burns for an entire year, but in just 1 month. Premier Wab Kinew says the devastation is unprecedented for the province.
In typical fire seasons, you would have one region having a challenge at a given time. It would be the east, it would be the north, it would be the west. This year, it's all the regions at the same time.
Early Wednesday, the Manitoba government held an update on the current human-caused blaze nearing the northwest city of Flin Flon. Officials said it began Monday on Saskatchewan's side of the border, but it couldn't be contained and it crossed into Manitoba on Tuesday. Now, Flin Flon's roughly 6,000 residents are preparing for a potential evacuation, and patients of the Flin Flon General Hospital are proactively being relocated. Priority wildfires near the town of Sheridan, as well as Lynn Lake and Marcel Colombe First Nation, have already caused states of emergencies and evacuations.
There is a concern with the shift of northwest winds that all of these fires in this region may travel towards communities in the next 24 hours.
There have been 96 wildfires in the province to date. 18 are currently active. Officials say all but 4 are confirmed or suspected to be caused by humans. Kinew says the fires continue to displace hundreds and hundreds of Manitobans from their homes. He says hotels are full, so communities will be asked to step up and provide shelter.
We want to underline the severity of the situation. We are not going to be calling for nothing. So if you do get a call from an official asking you to open your doors, whether it's a rec center or a larger facility or a building, we need you to take the call and to say yes.
Officials are telling people who are illegally flying private drones in the Flin Flon wildfire area to stop due to aerial collision risks with water bombing efforts. Those caught operating drones near wildfires could face a $100,000 fine or up to 2 years imprisonment. Sav Jonza, APTN National News, Winnipeg. This video shows a clear picture of what Pimicikamak Cree Nation residents are experiencing while fleeing wildfires raging near their northern Manitoba community. It's a long wait to safety with little movement as evacuees waited for a small ferry to cross the river to Norway House Cree Nation and return for more. William Thomas took the footage.
It is a pretty historic event that happened, a mass evacuation.
Pimicikamak declared a state of emergency and began proactively evacuating some of its 7,000 residents on May 23rd. Pimicikamak Cree Nation Chief David Monias says he asked the province to call for help from the Canadian Armed Forces, but was told the province needs to exhaust resources before that could happen. Though armed forces were deployed yesterday to the region, Monias says governmental bureaucracy delayed what could have been a smooth evacuation.
By the time that they sent the planes, only 2 of the 3 could land because the smoke was pretty bad. So we sent the people out to Norway House, and because Norway House doesn't have a bridge, they were bottlenecked at that ferry People waiting up to 9 hours to get on that ferry to go across to safety. 9 hours. People without food. People without water.
It's been a devastating wildfire season throughout the province. Now 17,500 residents from across northern Manitoba are headed south to safety, with the majority en route by car roughly 650 kilometers south to Winnipeg. Community centers, arenas, and soccer fields will be turned into shelters with tents and cots. Premier Wab Kinew says it's the largest evacuation the province has seen in most people's living memory.
For the first time, it's not a fire in one region. We have fires in every region at the same time. And that is a sign of a changing climate that we are going to have to adapt to.
The area burned so far is almost 3 times the usual size for an entire year, but in just 1 month. First Nations are largely affected due to their rural locations. First Nations leaders met in Winnipeg today to discuss next steps and advocate for their communities.
We call upon the whole country to be able to stand with us, because this kind of massive evacuation is unprecedented. It has never happened before.
Officials say it's too early to tell how long people will be displaced from their homes, but that the state of emergency will be in effect for 30 days. Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Roughly 80% of Indigenous communities in the country are located in or near forests that burn frequently, according to the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. The Government of Canada estimates that First Nations and primarily Indigenous communities make up 42% of wildfire evacuations, though only representing 5% of all of the country's overall population. Northern Manitoba is no exception. MKO Grand Chief Garrison Setti advocates for the region. He says there were difficulties in being heard by past provincial governments during wildfire season, but that things have changed under the current NDP government led by Premier Wab Kinew.
Previously, we had struggles communication-wise. There are times when we were not allowed to be in part of discussions. But yes, this government has actually done a lot of work with us and meeting and sitting down with us and actually involving us in conversations that pertain to First Nation people. So I'm very appreciative of the fact that the ministers continue to reach out to us and we continue to meet and sit down. And I think that's the first time that's happened in history of provincial and First Nation relations. So I'm very happy.
Pimicikamak Cree Nation Chief David Monias says the wildfire has now reached Genpeg and Monago and is advancing rapidly towards the junction of Highway 373 and 374. Conditions in Cross Lake remain extremely smoky and hazardous, and any unnecessary travel in the community is not recommended. The chief says another plane is attempting to land and pick up as many people as possible this morning, depending on visibility and flight safety. Chief Monias says they have already evacuated thousands of people to Norway House, but the recent influx of more than 6,000 evacuees has made the situation more challenging, with some people stranded at the ferry to Norway House for up to 9 hours without food or water. In a statement, Pimicikamak Chief David Monias said, "This crisis exposed gaps in federal and provincial response coordination. Despite Pimicikamak declaring a state of emergency on May 23rd, we were forced to wait for a provincial protocol to activate military assistance. The Canadian Armed Forces were ready but were delayed due to red tape. This has cost time and put lives at greater risk. Our urgent request to all levels of governments: send more flights, provide food and water immediately, support families who fled with nothing, expedite emergency accommodations, and to Manitoba, build a bridge to Norway House. Lives depend on it." The chief is advising people to not return to Cross Lake as the smoke is thick and the fire is dangerously close.
You can see there, the highway was blocked off at Whiskey Jack Junction, so we went right to Norway House. And we were following a friend of ours, and he was towing a camper, so I was expecting the road to go a little bit longer, and then he started to slow down, and there was a huge line of cars. So we pulled over and we were just waiting, and then it would go up, and there was people just kind of wandering and visiting and kind of keeping an eye on things. And then so we got to that part at about 3:48 p.m. and we didn't get to the ferry it took us 6 hours for us to get to the ferry.
Manitoba is in its third day of a province-wide state of emergency due to numerous out-of-control wildfires. More communities and First Nations have been evacuated as fires continue to ignite and grow.
Yesterday we had a fire start in Split Lake, Pimicikamak Cree Nation. The situation there was very concerning for residents and for leadership. And then we turned to Puckatawagan, where the situation was very, very dangerous and scary for people in that community overnight. Between the 2 and 3 o'clock hours of the morning, there were many calls for help.
At a press conference this afternoon, Premier Wabkanu said Manitobans will see thousands of evacuees reach safety today.
On Wednesday, we said 17,000 people are being ordered out of their homes or being put on notice. Today's the day where the vast majority of those folks will actually have moved from their homes to safety.
Canoe says the grave situation affecting many parts of Canada has the province requiring international assistance. Colombian helicopters and 100 firefighters plus 25 managerial workers for logistical support will come from the United States. Some First Nations leaders have been vocal about what they consider to be a lack of support for their communities. Puckatawagan Matthias Colomb Cree Nation councillor Kelly Linklater says only about 150 of 3,000 community members have been evacuated since the state of emergency was called.
We're trying to convey the concern for the community members that are in the line of danger, that they need to be moved. We need more resources. We need to move them immediately.
He says helicopters that can only move a few people at once are being used since the airstrip is covered in smoke, and that local firefighters need more equipment.
I just think of the elders and our children and just everybody that is just sitting there and waiting, and they shouldn't be waiting. Why are these people sitting there waiting to be rescued?
When asked about First Nations leaders criticizing the provincial and federal response to the fires, Canoe said Manitobans need to keep calm and carry on and give space for officials to respond to the crisis.
Questions about accountability, I'm happy to take, and we will have plenty of time to be able to sort through these various issues. But in the emergency situation in which we currently find ourselves, I think it's important that we continue to support the efforts of those who are on the front lines.
The Canadian Armed Forces have been able to move evacuees from some communities to safety. Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
To make matters worse, Pimicikamak Chief David Monias says the community is now in a medical crisis after the nursing station was forced to shut down and the nurses were pulled from the community. The local doctor stayed, but he has no nurses to assist him. Chief Monias says he is worried for the pregnant women who now have nowhere to go, and they have now set up this makeshift clinic to deliver any possible unexpected babies, treat wounds, and provide essential care. Chief Monias says he has now spoke with Indigenous Service Minister Mandy Golmasti to provide more money and resources for the community. The chief says the risk of the wildfire remains extremely high with heavy smoke, and the community is running out of food and water. Here's what the chief had to say about the nurses unable to stay.
What's happening now is that we are making our own clinic, because our nursing station, our health center, they're all locked down. They're closed. They pulled the nurses and threatened to take away their licenses if they stayed. So that's something we didn't like. But we have Dr. Mueller who stayed behind, and the keys were taken away and everything's locked up. So we had to make our own clinic in one of the offices.
There were reports of trucks exploding at the airport as the fires were closing in. Combined with hydroelectricity to the community being cut off, band members were describing the situation as, quote, hell on earth. Sources tell APTN National News that military and private helicopters are moving people out of the community as quickly as they can.
Hundreds of donations of clothing, toys, and hygiene products for Manitoba wildfire evacuees are piling up at the First Nations Family Advocate Office in downtown Winnipeg. Upstairs, a team of helpers are sorting them. Kayla Frank is leading the efforts.
I'm extremely surprised and happy of how many donations we've been receiving, even within this last hour. It's continuously, staff are going downstairs, getting donations, bringing them up. We're sorting it all together.
Later today, donations will be transported and distributed to thousands of evacuees.
And a lot of times they're just leaving with the clothing on their backs. And so we wanted to do something to give back to the evacuees so that when they do come to Winnipeg, they have belongings here waiting for them.
Over 17,000 people in Manitoba are being evacuated from wildfires after a province-wide state of emergency was declared on Wednesday. Over 100 people have been evacuated from Pukatawagan or Pimicikamak Cree Nation, but thousands still remain. The fire is still out of control, and the community has no all-season access road. Pimicikamak's former chief, Lorna Biggity, spoke with APTN over the phone Friday from the PAW. Her family members are still stranded in Pukatawagan.
The smoke is so thick over there, they said. I'm talking to my family members because they're still out there. Mm-hmm. My babies are still out there. My grandchildren waiting.
On Thursday evening, Pukatawagan's airport closed due to nearby fires. They've been without power for days.
There weren't that many people that left yesterday because of the airport. They have to evacuate from the airport because there was a fire right there. We don't even know if it's okay now. People are out there stranded, fighting for their lives right now.
At a Friday press conference, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew said the Canadian Armed Forces have been sent to Pukatawagan. He also confirmed the airport wasn't damaged. Kinew said thousands more are expected to evacuate to Winnipeg today. Eager to help, Nigel Michael Paul, a Métis artist who owns the Art Plus Fashion apparel store in the city's West End, is packing backpacks filled with clothing and essential goods to give to evacuees once they land.
It's important to give back to the community because that's what makes the community, us all taking part of it, showing that we care about each other. I think that's important because there's a lot of good people in Winnipeg.
Sierra Buttons, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Therefore, I respectfully request an emergency debate to deliberate immediate actions to protect affected communities and ensure a just and effective response to this worsening crisis.
Gazan rose in the House of Commons on Monday, requesting an emergency debate on the wildfires. Speaking outside the House's chamber, she said the federal government has been far too slow to respond as fires continue to devastate northern Manitoba communities.
Well, you know, I've been speaking to some of the leadership in northern Manitoba who are trying to get their folks evacuated. And the response, as what I've heard, has been quite bureaucratic. People aren't getting the information that they need. And they're saying, look, people over bureaucracy, this is a crisis and we need to get people out quickly.
Last week, Prime Minister Mark Carney approved a request by Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew to send in the Canadian military to assist the province with wildfire response. But Northern First Nations say they don't have enough support for evacuations or places to go.
Pukatawagan, for example, because of the dire situation and because of a late response time from the federal government, they were unable to bring in planes. They were lacking in food and water. This is unacceptable. This is something that happens almost annually with a growing climate crisis, and the federal government needs to respond with the same urgency that the people in remote and northern communities are facing right now.
House Speaker Francis Scarpaleggia approved the request for an emergency debate. It will take place Tuesday at the end of regular proceedings. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Across Manitoba, more than 17,000 people have been told to evacuate their homes due to wildfires. On Saturday, Indigenous leadership in Manitoba called on governments to urge hotels to make space for evacuees. On Monday, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew said around 1,000 hotel rooms are set to open for evacuees. At a Monday afternoon press conference in Winnipeg, Manitoba Kiiwetinowi Ogamaganik Grand Chief Garrison Settee said they're working with the province of Ontario and Expera, a risk mitigation company, to settle evacuees in Niagara Falls. He said 600 will head there on Monday.
Our people arrived there, they were being welcomed, they had food, and the lodging was there, and they had people helping coordinate events like activities for elders. So that's how you do an evacuation, and we have much to learn here in Manitoba.
Settee said the majority of people in the Pimicikamak Cree Nation have been evacuated, except some essential service workers. He urged the province to listen to First Nations leadership.
Listen to us, and because we know how to do things. It's just we don't have the resources and the wherewithal, and they need to allow us to take control because we know what to do.
The Canadian Red Cross is accepting monetary donations for the 2025 Manitoba wildfires through redcross.ca and by phone at 1-800-418-1111. Sierra Buttons, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Could this have been prevented? My general feeling is that most of it could have been prevented if our nations were equipped with the proper equipment.
For 13 days, Manitoba Kiiwetinowi Ogamaganik Inc. Grand Chief Garrison Settee and First Nations leadership across the province have brought thousands of wildfire evacuees to a place of safety. But impacted communities have told Settee there's not enough emergency and fire prevention equipment on the ground.
They want to save their infrastructure. They want to protect their communities, but they don't have the equipment.
Gordy Bear is a chief of Pimicikamak Cree Nation, or Papatawagan, where all members, except some 50 essential workers, have been evacuated.
Nobody has given us any kind of equipment. Like I said, we have a pile of garden hoses here and cots. We don't need those cots. We have beds at home. If you give us equipment, we'll protect ourselves and we'll stop the fire.
Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Grand Chief Kyra Wilson says communities have been begging the province and Canada for equipment that has never arrived.
We know that some communities don't have the fire trucks. There's no evacuation transport, no water supply systems, limited communication tools. As Chief Bear said, they're using hoses that are as big as a garden hose. How do you fight wildfires with a garden hose?
Pimicikamak Cree Nation Chief David Monias joined virtually from his community where nearly everyone has been evacuated. He says First Nations run emergency services are needed.
We can do a better job, and we have done a better job than anybody else. You know, in Gross Lake, we have a community council, mayor and council. We don't play around with jurisdiction or the boundaries and so forth. Right away, we join forces.
All leaders urge the province, Canada, and the Red Cross to end the jurisdictional disputes and promptly deliver emergency equipment to northern communities.
We're standing by fighting over jurisdictional issues. This is a shame how this wildfire has been coordinated from day one. This should not have happened to our people. And I'm asking Canada to wake up and help our people.
Sierra Buttons, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Winnipeg NDP MP Leah Gazan opened the debate by saying the government is failing in its treaty obligations to First Nations people.
The Government of Canada is bound to respect its fiduciary duty of care and treaty obligations when working with Indigenous peoples. They are also obligated to uphold our Canadian Charter, specifically Article 7, Section 7 of the Canadian Charter that concerns rights to life, liberty, and security of the person. Mr. Speaker, this has not happened as evacuees have often been exposed to unsafe conditions.
Minister of Emergency Management Eleanor Olszewski and other Liberal MPs disputed Gazan's claims, saying the government has been in constant contact with Manitoba Premier Wabkanu and First Nations on the ground to provide the supports they need as the situation evolves. Indigenous Services Minister Mandy Galmasti said this includes covering evacuation costs.
The Emergency Management Assistance Program under Indigenous Services Canada also reimburses eligible costs related to wildfire response and recovery. This includes evacuation support and culturally sensitive services offered with wraparound on-site, taking into consideration mental health, traditional food, language interpretation, and childcare. I want to share that we have been delivering these in a collaborative way.
But Nunavut NDP MP Laurie Idlout said it's unclear whether First Nations are being provided with proper accommodation or the tools to fight the wildfires in their communities.
What will this government do to make sure the evacuees are properly housed, fed, and able to take care of each other? The federal government's role in wildfire protection with regard to Indigenous peoples include wildfire suppression on federal lands, also known as Indian reserves or military bases. We must be given an update as to whether this is occurring.
Rebecca Chartrand is the Minister of Northern and Arctic Affairs. She's also the MP for the Northern Manitoba riding of Churchill-Kiiwetinoong-Aski, one of the hotspots of the fires. She said the Northern First Nations she talks to have been satisfied with the federal government's response.
I invite those questioning our government's response to actually speak to the people on the ground. Ask the elders who have been airlifted to safety. Ask the local leadership who's received daily updates, direct lines of communication, and who sent thank you messages for the support they are receiving from our government. Our response was rooted in safety first and respect for life.
APTN reached out to Indigenous Services Canada to get specific examples of some of the supports the department has been providing to First Nations during the current wildfires. In an emailed statement, the department says all eligible evacuation costs will be covered through the Emergency Management Assistance Program. First Nations can also apply for advance payments to cover costs, of which $2.4 million has been advanced as of May 30th. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
To the wildfire situation now, and so far more than 650 Manitobans have been deployed to fight wildfires across the province, and more than 175 people have come from out of province to help. But provincial government officials say despite all hands on board, they plan to keep fighting the fires for quite some time. At a wildfire update on Thursday, provincial officials shared there are currently 12 out-of-control wildfires in Manitoba, with 9 being actively fought due to their proximity to communities. 2 wildfires near Flin Flon have now merged together to create the largest at more than 300,000 hectares. They say a number of structures there have been destroyed, but are not aware of any wildfire-related losses in Pimicikamak or Puckatawagan. Around 18,000 evacuees are registered with Red Cross for shelter and support. Daily stipends from the federal and provincial governments will be administered through Red Cross to registered evacuees in the coming days. They say current cooler weather has helped the fight.
We have had cooler temperatures, a little bit higher humidity. Winds generally have been fairly low to moderate. We are expecting that general trend to continue, which will be helpful for our efforts. There is precipitation in the forecast on the weekend for some areas of Manitoba, including areas where we have fires in the northwest as well as the east. At this time, those precipitation amounts are pretty variable and uncertain. So I'd like to remind Manitobans that just because you might see a blob of rain on that precipitation map, that's not going to be enough to put out these fires.
Government officials say more than 1,700 hotel rooms in the province have been assigned to evacuees, with 200 rooms still available and 200 more to become available in the coming days. Some people displaced from their homes by wildfires have been sent to Ontario, where 1,500 hotel rooms have been made available by the provincial government. Almost 800 of those have already been assigned. Manitoba says about 360 evacuees were still in temporary shelters on Thursday morning.
Thousands of Manitobans have been displaced from their homes and communities, and as a government, we have moved very quickly to give them safety and shelter. Working across multiple government departments, working with community partners, with Canada, we've accomplished a huge scale evacuation in a fairly short time. Because of the huge scale of this crisis, we did open congregate shelters to provide immediate safety. However, as policy, Manitoba aims to provide hotel rooms for all evacuees. Now, the majority of evacuees are in hotel rooms or with friends and family.
At a Monday afternoon press conference, Transport and Infrastructure Minister Lisa Naylor said pausing local hotel bookings is one of several ways Manitobans can help wildfire evacuees. Kristen Hayward, the Assistant Deputy Minister for the Manitoba Wildfire Service, said 28 fires are burning in Manitoba and 10 are out of control. There are approximately 21,000 registered wildfire evacuees in Manitoba, with 27 communities under evacuation orders. Last week, leaders from Northern Manitoba First Nations called on the province and federal government to send more firefighting equipment to their communities. When asked if the province plans to do so, Natural Resources and Indigenous Futures Minister Ian Bushy had this to say.
We have a number of resources that are out in the communities and supporting not only First Nation communities, but the municipalities as well too. But as we go forward and learning from the things that we go through today, I think as a go-forward approach, we're absolutely engaging in the First Nation communities as to how we can stand up further infrastructure in those communities so that when we do have situations such as this, we're all more prepared.
Manitoba's Minister of Infrastructure and Transportation revealed today that this year's wildfire evacuation is now considered the largest domestic air operation in Canadian military history, and providing the following information for evacuees to counter conflicting information being shared on social media.
So I want to clarify that evacuees do not need to travel to Winnipeg to verify their identity to receive financial support through the Canadian Red Cross. The Red Cross is validating evacuees' information without requiring travel through local in-person meetings and through phone interviews. The province has been flowing aid to residents of municipalities and Northern Affairs communities, and Indigenous Services Canada with MKO is responsible for issuing federal aid to support First Nations community members in Manitoba.
Some wildfire evacuees in Manitoba say they're receiving fraudulent text messages and calls from scammers pretending to provide disaster relief. The Canadian Red Cross wants everyone to be cautious of unsolicited requests for payment or personal information from fraudsters impersonating them. Sav Jonesa has more.
Even during a time of crisis, scam artists never take a break. Some wildfire evacuees in Manitoba are being targeted by fraudsters pretending to be the Canadian Red Cross.
We've received reports of that, and we're asking Manitobans to ensure that they're responding to official communications through the Red Cross. Don't provide your information to third parties or anything that's unvalidated. And a good way to verify that is to go to MB Ready or the Red Cross website directly.
Text messages, phone calls, and possibly even emails are going out to unsuspecting Manitobans displaced by wildfires. They promise financial aid to many who are desperately waiting for it. But the result may be costly as scammers demand banking information, social insurance numbers, and even an initial payment. The Canadian Red Cross says those requests are red flags. Individuals eligible for financial assistance will not need to provide their social insurance number, bank account information, or credit card number during their registration or to receive assistance. In addition, the Red Cross will not ask for any form of payment in order to receive assistance. More than 20,000 wildfire evacuees are registered with the Canadian Red Cross in Manitoba. It's in charge of dispensing daily stipends on behalf of the province so that people can continue to pay their bills and make ends meet during a time when many are out of work. Though Manitobans have taken to social media to show off the fraudulent messages, so far Manitoba RCMP have received no reports from people affected. They remind people that if you feel uncomfortable or suspicious, hang up, delete the email, or simply ignore the request. Don't feel pressured to make any decisions and never send money. It seems like Manitoba isn't the only province being impacted by scammers. Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe had this to say.
Taking advantage of people in what is an extremely vulnerable situation where they and their family have been displaced from their home, often had to travel halfway across the province, hours and hours in the dead of night. For someone to take advantage of a family that is in that situation, hell hath no place hot enough for them.
The Canadian Red Cross says to contact local authorities if you suspect someone is trying to scam you. Sav Jones, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
At a Friday press conference, MKO Grand Chief Garrison Satie said the SCO will boost on-the-ground support at sites outside of Winnipeg. That includes congregate shelters and hotels in Brandon, Dauphin, Winkler, and Portage-la Prairie. There are nearly 21,000 registered wildfire evacuees in Manitoba, but some, including those in Cranberry, Portage, and York Factory First Nation, will be allowed to head home this weekend. Satie said a task force with the province, Red Cross, and First Nations communities to coordinate a smooth return for all evacuees is in the works.
Task force that's being created right now to facilitate a process of repatriation, and the mode of transportation will probably be buses, and having a coordinated effort to bring everybody home through a system where buses are being used. One of the communities is isolated, so that'll be a different process, of course. So they're already starting to plan on how they're going to repatriate the members of our First Nation communities. So it's something that's happening already. They're starting to plan, and when that plan is available, they'll be able to execute it when the time comes for everybody to go home.
Also on Thursday, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew did an aerial tour of the province to see the extent of the wildfires. He commented on people preying on vulnerable evacuees, calling for them to just cut it out. Here's a clip.
Well, everybody's trying to prey on evacuees, whether you're somebody who's trying to do some sort of scam or if you're just like some bunk little drug dealer, like, get out of here. This is garbage behavior. It's not what anybody should be thinking of. You cannot hold your head up high in the community if you do that. I mean, this is basic stuff that I'm saying here. So yeah, there will be investigations, there will be accountability.
On Thursday, Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew met some of the American firefighters helping suppress the numerous wildfires in the province. The meeting was part of his day-long aerial tour of northern Manitoba to see the extent of the damage. According to the latest fire situation report, around 900,000 hectares of land has been burnt in Manitoba so far. That's 19 times the size of Winnipeg, the province's largest city.
This burn area is massive. This is just a huge part of the province that has been burned.
More than 20,000 Manitobans have been evacuated as a result. While some evacuated communities may be able to return in the coming days, Kinew said others may still have to wait weeks until they can go home. Thousands of people are currently staying in hotels or with family, but not all are so lucky. During his tour, Kinew visited a temporary shelter in Thompson housing 180 evacuees. He said more hotels need to open up rooms, but he doesn't want to resort to using emergency powers to force them to do so.
We got families with young kids sleeping in a rink on a cot going into week 3 in that situation, and then we drive by in the same community a hotel room with an empty parking lot. We are asking for a bit more from the hotel sector.
Addressing the province's response to the wildfires, Kinew says there will be opportunity to learn lessons from this crisis for next year.
When we're talking about that, after the fact review, it's equipment, it's the human resources, more initial attack firefighters in the future, it's infrastructure, and it's also, having that runway long enough for an evacuation operation too. So there's a lot of different questions we're going to have to look forward to in the future.
Floyd Mason first met Canoe when his community of Pimicikamak First Nation evacuated due to wildfires in 2017. He came to the airport tarmac to shake his hand again.
I'm happy that I'll be able to take another picture this year, this happening again, evacuation and all. just memories, I guess.
He says Canoe's government is doing a good job with the wildfire crisis, but more could be done to prepare First Nations evacuees unfamiliar with Winnipeg.
When you get evacuated from the community, it's just very hard. Especially if you're first time in the city, you don't know where you're going, what you're doing, and you end up someplace where you're not supposed to be.
While Mason's community is currently safe, he feels for those currently being affected.
We understand what other people are going through, what they're going through right now. We understand, and the only thing we can do is send prayers and hope that everybody's okay.
Sav Jonesa, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thousands of people from Pimicikamak Cree Nation are on their way home this week. Residents of the nation in northern Manitoba were evacuated more than 3 weeks ago due to an out-of-control wildfire. Now, Chief David Monias says repatriation efforts are underway. For more, we're joined by Chief Monias. Chief Monias, good news. People are heading home. Can you tell us how that's going to play out?
Well, right now we're at 1470 on Ellis Avenue, and we have people coming here to register with the Red Cross and also put their names on a list for the flights that are going back by plane. And we also have chartered buses here and our own bus that are getting people on board to go home. Plus, we also have people that are driving on with their own vehicles that were able to get out of Cross Lake at that time. So we're catching them up and make sure they're on their way.
Chief, how long might it take to get everyone home, and what are the conditions like back there?
Well, I think it will probably take a few days to take everybody home. I mean, it's right now the people are more that are really eager to go home are already here. They've been here since early this morning, and right now we have the fire under control back home. We had EHO for the health and environmental assessments were done, so the people said that it was safe to go home. And the wildfire officer of the wildfire said that it was safe to go home. They recommended that we should be able to lift the evacuation order, but not we didn't rescind the declaration of state of emergency.
This is still a very fluid situation, but what do you think are some of the lessons learned from this wildfire evacuation?
Well, I think one of the things that we learned is that this is not our first time that we've done this. We've done this back in 1989, and also back in 2 years ago when we had to evacuate 7,500 people. Same thing when we did the COVID. Is that we really had to start digging our own stuff, setting up our own system, First Nations-led evacuation system, to be able to do things a little bit better and a little bit different. I mean, the people that have been helping us are great, but the system is it's not that great. And I think there needs to be a lot of changes made in terms of how you receive the people, how you send them out and make sure they're triaged, to make sure they're fed, somebody's giving them food and a place to stay right away, and then work on the paperwork after.
Chief, quickly on another note here, we're wondering if you have any comment on the federal government's Bill C-5 and the efforts to push that through when some nations are dealing with wildfires.
Well, it's for us. I was really surprised in terms of Bill C-5 was there, and I did get the email, but I wasn't paying much attention to it because I was too busy trying to help my people at the same time. So it was wrong timing, I think, for us. But I think Bill C-5, we're not against development, but it's kind of concerning because it doesn't take into account the treaties that we have, and it fast-tracking the whole system where you're not going to have free, prior, and informed consent from the First Nations who are actually true. The ones that are those territories that you're going to be developing corporations to harvest minerals or do development, and it's going to destroy our land. So it's I think they should have waited a little bit longer to make sure that we are ready to go and make sure they involve us. Right now, we're not involved, so.
Chief Monias, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you for your time, and we wish you and the evacuees and everyone going back home good luck and safe travels.
All right, thank you.
Not-for-profit organization Manitoba Blue Cross is providing free counseling and virtual care services to Manitobans evacuated due to wildfires. Those eligible can access up to 3 counseling sessions, in person or virtual, and connection to a 24/7 mental health professional. Evacuees can also access medical support online or over the phone for physical issues like infections or rashes with a partner go-to doctor. And in partnership with Sleep in Heavenly Peace Winnipeg, Manitoba Blue Cross will also be sending 50 mattresses and bedding packages to northern Manitoba so those without beds can have some comfort.
We are here to support all Manitobans, and we recognize how disruptive this evacuation has been for many Manitoba communities. So for us, it was about how can we be helpful and how can we be helpful quickly? These are things that we already had available. We offer robust mental health services through our employee assistance program, and as the leader, it was an easy decision for me to say, let's leverage those as we have in similar circumstances in the past to make sure that people can access good mental health services quickly.
After a stretch of hot weather and thunderstorms, there are now 81 active wildfires in Manitoba, placing 6 communities under evacuation orders. On Monday, the province provided an update.
We've had a lot of lightning go through the province. When numbers were really escalating, we were seeing over 25 new fires every 24-hour period popping up.
Residents of Lynn Lake and Pimicikamak First Nation are being forced to leave their homes a second time. On Friday, fires reportedly destroyed 7 homes in Pimicikamak Cree Nation, where residents remain evacuated.
The 20-year average for this date is 187, and we are at 235. So we're definitely above average for the number of fires we've had so far this year.
In a Saturday press release, Manitoba Kiwetinowi Ogumaganik Inc. said up to 150 residents in the Opipinapawan Cree Nation have been medically evacuated. In a Sunday Facebook post, Pimicikamak Cree Nation Chief David Monias said they've organized evacuations for Priority 1 residents, which include elders, people with medical conditions, and families with young children.
The Red Cross told us that they confirmed 60 rooms yesterday and 60 rooms today that are secured for evacuees. But they're prioritizing larger families, and certain families can stay together who are P1. So if you have a P1 in your family and you're being sent out, then you can take your children.
The province is now monitoring 16 fires that could impact communities, and 6,600 Manitobans have been evacuated. Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The Pimicikamak Cree Nation, located about 850 kilometers north of Winnipeg, has been under a state of emergency since Sunday. On Tuesday, it announced that Priority 1 evacuees will be evacuating to the nearby city of Thompson. Priority 1 evacuees include people with ongoing health conditions and medical needs. The wildfire near Thompson is more than 7,000 hectares in size and is out of control, according to a Tuesday announcement from the province of Manitoba. Thompson is also under a state of emergency due to wildfires, and city staff is asking people to complete a pre-planning registration form in case an evacuation happens. Pimicikamak leadership previously expressed outrage last Monday, saying there was at first a lack of action and empathy shown to them from Indigenous Services Canada, the First Nations Inuit Health Branch, and the Canadian Red Cross.
The northern city of Thompson has received some relief in the past few days as firefighters make progress on hotspots for the wildfire 14 kilometers away. However, it's still out of control and the residents are under pre-evacuation notice. Fire danger is moderate to high despite the weather. Priority 1 residents from the Island Lake communities of Wasagimak and St. Teresa Point have begun to evacuate. More than 12,000 people from 8 communities are evacuated. 6,000 people are occupying 2,100 hotel rooms in Manitoba, and 1,300 evacuees are in hotels in Ontario. 2 congregate shelters in Winnipeg are at half capacity with 1,100 beds in use.
I just want to remind people that when they're planning to leave or leaving, that it's important for them to pack their medications, their ID, their phone chargers, important documents, baby supplies, and a change of clothes. If you're asked to leave, we ask that you also don't delay. And once you've left, we also ask that you please don't go back until local authorities do indicate that it's safe for you. If you're driving out of a community that's evacuating, it's important that you stick to the routes directed by a local authority and not deviate to back roads or shortcuts. We want to make sure people leaving communities remain safe. We do realize that this is a stressful time, but help is awaiting at reception and congregate shelters should you need it.
Thanks to suppression efforts and weather, several key wildfires in Manitoba are no longer out of control. The province-wide state of emergency expired Friday and will not be extended. 5 wildfires in the north and east have moved from out-of-control status to being held. Areas affected include Leaf Rapids, Marcel Colomb First Nation, Pimicikamak Cree Nation, and Nopaming Provincial Park. Being held means the fires are mostly contained and are projected to stay within current boundaries, but could still grow depending on variables like weather conditions. Another fire near Lynn Lake is officially under control, meaning it is completely contained but still requires some firefighting efforts to be fully extinguished. Mandatory evacuations continue in many communities throughout Manitoba. As of Thursday, there are currently 149 active wildfires for a total of 417 to date, well above the average for this time of year of 338. Sav Jonza, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The Children's Advocate Office is calling for the province to adopt new child-sensitive climate policies after Manitoba's worst wildfire season on record. In the statement of concern, Advocate Sherry Gott says mental health, education, and child protection supports must be at the heart of emergency planning. Manitoba's Minister for Indigenous Futures says his government is committed to reviewing their wildfire response. In an emailed statement says, in part, our government worked hard to support evacuated children throughout the season, whether it was running kids programming at 9 congregate shelters, finding spots in classrooms for kids living away from their home community, or providing in-house childcare supports to give parents relief. Gott says the province should keep this in mind.
Safety, first of all. Make sure that there's psychological services in place when they arrive at the place that they're evacuated to and when they return home. Education, of course, is a big key. You need that stability, and children that, go to school every day and then all of a sudden there's no school. Like it's just, it's hard on their mental health. We never know where the fire is going to start, right? But there should be proactive plans, an all government approach should be taken, and developing those preparedness plans to ensure that families and children have the appropriate supports that they need, whether it be fire, flood, weather related.
The Canadian Red Cross says more than 32,000 Manitobans from over 12,000 households were registered as evacuees while fires plagued the province, especially in the north. The provincial government is matching donations made to the Red Cross's 2025 Manitoba Wildfires Appeal Fund, totaling $6.5 million for individuals and small businesses directly affected by the fires. Registered evacuees who previously received emergency financial assistance will be eligible for recovery support of $120 per adult and $65 per child. $2 million will be set aside for small businesses who will need to apply to receive their share.